Hello everybody. Today we'll see our communication named Neuroscience and Learning, the effect of using concept maps on the students' results. This work is done by me, Sami Ennaciri, and Mohamed Droui and Fatiha Chigr. Let's begin by a brief vision on the context of our research. In the recent years, we have witnessed the emergence of a new discipline, which is neuroeducation, which is considered as the application of the neuroscience in the field of education. Neuroeducation offers the possibility of bridging the gap between educators, psychologists, and neuroscientists, and providing high-quality information in the rush to apply what we called the evidence-based methods. Among the tools often associated with this new discipline, we name the concept maps. We will discuss the general, Moroccan and global technological context, which served as a point of observation and starting points for this research. Thereafter, we will elucidate the main notions brought by neuroeducation as well as the highlighting of the notion of concept maps. For this, as we see on the screen, Morocco occupies a very lower position in the Human Development Index with a score of 0.591, and the education system is signaled out in various reports. And among the failures of the Moroccan education system, we find a decline in the quality of learning. As you can see, Zarouki in his study said that 64% of youth Moroccan students can't read correctly. In addition to this, we have witnessed these recent years the emergence of new brain mapping and analysis technologies that have advanced in the understanding of human brain through MRI, which is magnetic resonance imaging. And thanks to these cerebral images, the researchers were able to know the cerebral mechanism involved in carrying out the tasks. This decade is also called the decade of brain. By doing functional exploration of students performing cognitive tasks, the researchers were able to detect the origin of the students' difficulties. Instead of being based on traditional or individual assumptions about learning, education is being to be treated more as a science of education. And this new discipline, which is neuroeducation, is used to apply the scientific method to program design and teaching strategies, and this comes with attempts for more objective understanding of evidence-based learning. Now we will see neuroeducation and the main discoveries. The first discovery of neuroeducation, or the first principle, is neuroplasticity, and it is one of the most important discoveries in recent neuroscience, although different conceptions of these concepts exist. Neuroplasticity is the change in the structure of the brain through education. Second principle, which is neural recycling. Neural recycling can be seen as a second concept in neuroeducation from his perspective. Students must modify or retrain brain circuits already in place in the brain in order to learn to read and count. Certain brain circuits can be recycled to develop certain skills. Third principle, which is inhibition, this is explain what we call how conceptions are built in our brain. All the schools told us, as the CISA tells, our conception, our old conception are erased or there is a superposition of conception. But here we are talking about inhibition of certain brain areas to understand new uh, conceptions. The fourth principle is attention. Attention is a great issue today because the great challenge for teachers today is how to gain attention of young students and youth students. Attention is a very difficult thing to reach nowadays. That's why we must be creative in our learning methods to attract students. That's why the aim of our study is to ask this question: to what extent could the use of concept maps improve the learning of key notions of epidemiology among first-year nursing students? For this, to answer to this research question, we opted for a quantitative study since we want to compare the results of the group that will use the concept maps and the control group that will not use the concept maps. This quantitative study will be supplemented by a qualitative study using a focus group carried out with students who have worked with concept maps. To carry out our study, we randomly selected 60 students from Ispit's Rabat, which is the School of Nursing in Rabat. And the participants in this study are 16 students divided into 16 students for each class, divided into 13 students for each class. These students of the versatile nursing options at Ispit's Rabat were randomly assigned to two groups: G1, which is experimental group, and G2, which is control group. We provided students of nursing option with an epidemiology course for a duration of 3 hours and a half for each group. During the first period, a pre-test is done for the first group. Then course was given in a classical way, which means without a concept map. And finally, a post-test was carried out for the first group. During the second period, the same pre-test was carried out for the second group. Then we devoted half an hour for explanation and the realization of the concept maps before doing the course using them. And finally, we carried out the same post-test. Note that the pre-test and the post-test are the same for both groups. And for this, the results obtained by the pre-test and the post-test in the two groups is done by SPSS software. The means of each test are calculated and compared by the student test to see the significance of the results. The one-way ANOVA test to study the relationship between the general result and the cognitive factor, knowledge, understanding, and synthesis. And we finish our study with the Hague normalized test. After the pre-test, the results were like this. The standard deviation between the results of pre-test for the first group and the second group was a little bit the same, with a p-value of 0.2, which is not significant. There is no significant difference between the two results. But after the courses, we begin to observe a little bit, but a considerable difference between the two results, with a standard deviation of 2.9 for the first group and 3.4 for the second group, with a p-value of 0, which is a significant result. Here we have the one-way ANOVA test. The ANOVA test allows the students of the independence, to study the dependence of the results on cognitive factors, knowledge, memorization, and synthesis. For this, we decided to do one-way ANOVA tests. We can say that the use of concept maps, according to what we see here, we can say that the use of concept map has improved the results for students more than the use of classical methods. When we compare the gain of the groups, we found that the gain in the second group is greater than the first group. So, to avoid the floor effects, we propose to calculate the normalized gain of Hayek. And as we see here, we can say that the students gain more points on synthesis questions and comprehension questions, according to the standard deviation. We have 0.001 and 0.30. The focus group results, we have focus group analysis revealed an appreciation of the concept maps by the students. They declare that this tool allows them to understand, memorize, and structure the information, since the latter is presented in such a way that the essential information is kept and students' congestions is avoided. In addition, students feel motivated to work since the work is done in groups, and also because there is the use of diagrams, which makes the course more airy and more lighter. Here we have the Hayek normalized test. For the first group, which is the control group, the Hayek score was 2. And for the group number 2, which is the experimental group, we have the Hayek normalized test of 5. When we compare the two tests, we can confirm that there is a significant gain in the experimental groups with whom we have used the concept maps. We can say that the first statistical test, which is the student test for the comparison of the meaning, showed that there is a difference in means which tell us that the gain of the second group was statistically significant. And according to the study of Isgunkilic and Kizilgol, concept maps allows to have a significant learning with an influence on students' scores. What can explain this evolution of the result students is the significant learning. Indeed, the group which had the course by concept maps was able to benefit from a graphic tool which is close to how our brain works, as Stanislas Dehaene said. The second statistical test, which is that of one-way ANOVA, we studied each result obtained in relation to cognitive levels. The results showed an improvement in the scores obtained of the comprehension and synthesis question. This can be explained by the brain plasticity and the mechanism of synaptogenesis and neurogenesis explained by Hub. And Indeed, the concept maps allows to put the students in situations of concentration which makes it possible to create new synaptic connections and thus to widen the capacity of the brain. The concept map is also a tool for representing and organizing knowledge, which explain the improvement in understanding and synthesis a, among students. As Novak and Kanias explained it, we add that at the cerebral level, the region responsible for intelligence and understanding is the region of memorization. Suddenly, the concept maps allows a reactivation of memory through repetition, which influences the understanding of students. Finally, even if our study didn't plan to study the influence of the use of concept maps on students' motivation, the focus group reveals student motivation to work with this educational tool. The concept map activates dopamine circuits in the brain through exchanges between students. And as a conclusion, this study aimed to explore the effect of using concept maps in the classroom. For this, a pedagogical intervention using concept maps and another done in classic way were carried out with two groups of students. The results obtained showed that the group taught by the method using concept maps obtains better results than those who have had the course in a traditional way. In addition, we, not, we noticed that these results are more marked on the cognitive levels of comprehension and synthesis. These results were corroborated by results of focus group carried out in which the majority of the students underlined the perceived difference in terms of understanding and organization and the synthesis ideas, as well as the motivation aroused by group work, by concept map. Thank you for your attention and great thank for the organization committee.